is happening. We are flagging all over the world. All right. I had to step in because we are having some technical issues with who is supposed to be the host, and we can't um, wait forever. We said 11, and 11 is 11. All right. So today's program, like I said, we're going to be having a father come talk to us. And when I say father, this time around, I mean the chairman of BCI, Background Check International. Um, he has been there before the beginning of the complaint, and he has also been the backbone of BCI. But like every father, he's always at the background. You hardly even see him come out in the name of BCI because he has other things he does. He's the vice chairman of Verdant Sale Communications. All right. So our speaker for today is no one than Dr. Tunji Olugbodi. He's going to be talking to us on building a tribe of mentors, building a tribe of mentors and the strategies for men in life and business. It's somebody that indeed many had always sat even at his feet to listen to his wisdom, and today is going to be taking us through that. So we are not going to waste time at all. It's going to go ahead and talk to us, and all other activities will be coming after now. So without wasting any time, I will I'm so happy, and with every joy in my heart, I bring to the screen the chairman of Background Check International. The young man in BCI are seated, ready to listen to him. So let us welcome Dr. Tunji Olugbodi. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, my dear MD. Thank you very much for having me here. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by acknowledging everyone in the room, but most especially also joining us is one of my good friends, a publisher of renown, a great journalist by all standards and estimation, Mr. Azu Arinze. He's actually been holding on here for quite a while. Azu is a great enthusiast of what I can call the Tunji Olugbodi and Verdant Sale brand. When we do events, he's always the first to arrive. We have a lot in common. His birthday is March 24th, mine is March 25th. And he's somebody that I value his friendship. Thank you very much for being here, Azu. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me loud and clear. Okay, so like I said, thank you very much for having me here. I'm just going to go ahead and try and share my screen. If you can see it, please confirm that you can, so that we can get right into the business. Again, thank you very much for the introductory remarks, the MD. The BCI brand is a brand that one remains very proud of. It's a brand that has done it, very well over the years. It's a brand that one is proud to be associated with, and in truth, it's a brand that clearly is going places. So we thank God for how well and how far He has led BCI. Please confirm that you can see my screen. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen. We can see your screen.
Okay, great. Okay. So good morning once again. I was originally asked to speak on, building a tribe of mentor strategies for men in life, but I've modified that now to needed a trusted tribe of mentors. And the reason is simply that I believe very strongly that to whom much is given, much is expected. yes, we can talk about building a tribe, but what's really needed is the consciousness of a tribe that continues to grow in leaps and bounds with an intentional propensity for increase. So again, I'm going to be sharing thoughts with you. What is supposed to mark the Father's Day for 2023. I understand Father's Day is actually June 18th, which is Sunday next week. I listened to some of the comments made by the MD about the Father's Day, and my first proposal is what's really the link between mentorship in the workplace and the Father's Day, and what's the similarity between the Father's Day and International Men's Day, which is marked typically every November 19th of every year. I mean, what's the correlation? And I think pretty much like you said, on a lighter note, Father's Day, International Men's Day is usually marked rather than celebrated. Mother's Day is the only one that they celebrate. I was listening to a comedian the other day, and he said even Halloween it comes higher in terms of recognition than Father's Day. Anyway, my purpose in this discussion today will be to share my own mentorship experience by telling some of the stories, relatable stories I call them, from my own trajectory since school as an undergraduate about 40 years ago. I'm hoping that this will help to deepen the definition of what mentorship stands for and how it's a veritable tool that helps everyone to grow in wisdom. When you stand on the shoulders of people who have gone ahead and done it way ahead of you. And in doing that, I think it's important to establish a few things, a few facts, a few nuggets that I think is fundamental to who I am and my own set of beliefs. Number one is that I believe that, as a people, as a nation, and especially as men, we need heroes. We need heroes who are father figures. We need heroes who are father figures. So very often, real fathers are in short supply. And I think it's a global phenomenon. Number one, they say that there are far more women than men. I don't know if that's the reason or one of the reasons. Number two is also that in the quest to play our roles, and I'm going to be talking in more details about that, what one finds is that we fall far short. So when we talk about having heroes, we do not seem to rank very highly in that respect. And to that extent, we find situations where our whole essence is called to question and put to task. If we want to take it further, it's also that we need father figures who are heroes, who are heroes and who are mentors. And I'm referring to fathers who are present. We have too many absentee fathers, who just walk by or who never take responsibility for who they are and what they should stand for. I'm a very strong proponent of borrow with pride. And basically to borrow here, I'm talking about the need to borrow our self-sense by, watching and gaining from the experience of others for us to be able to make a headway in life by taking the right kind of decisions. Of course, I also believe very strongly that for you to be mentored, you also have to be able, for you to mentor others, you have to be able to be mentored. You cannot be mentored if you are unable to mentor others yourself. What you don't have, you can't give. So in the manner of speaking, you must be the hero, you must be the catalyst that you seek in others, even if it's in a potential manner. I also believe very strongly that there's no elevator to success, and it's simply that you have to take the stairs one step at a time. And I introduced Azu earlier on. Azu has a book that I think is titled "Success is Not Served a la carte," one of his several books that he has written. And the whole idea behind it is that there must be a certain level of intentionality behind your aim to make a headway in life, to achieve success in life, to be able to make meaning of life and living. If you are not intentional about it, then you are likely to just be blown here and there by the winds and by the challenges and the vicissitudes of life as we know it. But permit me, apart from the brief introduction that was said by the MD, by Oak, I think to also put a little more context into why I'm able to share some of my own insight and experience with you, and why I think sharing these experiences might just be worth a while as a basis to further exchange views and ideas and share ideas. I've spent around about 35 years and a little over in the corporate world on a consistent basis, starting off as a worker, and when you're a worker, what you're paid is wages. And I think I graduated from being a worker now to being the staff. When you're a staff, you now start earning some salary. My first salary, real salary when I started at the Guardian was 430 naira. 430 naira. Yes, you had me right. Not 43,000, not 14,000, 430 naira. Anyway, so we graduated from being a staff to being an executive, playing senior roles and positions in different organizations, and from that point, also becoming an entrepreneur. To become an entrepreneur means that it's the, if you like, it's the apex, is the crescendo of the progression, that one can think of in the linear growth. I've also been a family man, married for over 32 years, 33 years by the grace of God, on 1st of December 2023. I think that also counts for something. I'm a firm believer in the tenacity of man, the human spirit, to be able to succeed when there's sufficient challenge that confronts them. I believe innately that God has given us a lot of talents and endowments to be able to overcome whatever challenges come our way. But of course, we must be able to operate the faith and sow the seed that we might find in our hands. I'm an incurable optimist. I believe very much in Nigeria. I believe in Africa. I celebrate Africa. And I also know that only the just shall live by faith. Whatever your faith or leaning is, you must understand and believe that there's a bigger spiritual being than you, and that is God, who reigns and rules the affairs of men. And again, I'm going to be talking briefly about that in the nexus between faith and spirituality, mentorship, and indeed running a business. I said earlier on that I'm proud to be associated with BCI. I'm the chairman, and I'm even very proud. I'm much proud of I think, the incredible work that you guys are doing here. And I believe that the sky is just a starting point. It's not the limit. So let's put a few things in context to set the background for this discussion, talking about mentorship, talking about mentors, talking about what ostensibly should be, how to build, how to nurture, how to grow a band of mentors and how to access it. And I think the first thing we need to understand is that if we want to contextualize our discussion today, we cannot run away from the fact that we live in what's now termed a VUCA world. VUCA is V-U-C-A. VUCA is described or defined as the video is volatile. We live, especially after COVID-19, a lot of things have been, not the way it used to be. COVID-19 disrupted a lot of things, disrupted life, destroyed the way we know and do business, brought the incursion of technology in a lot of things that we do, changed the paradigms and the settings by which we do a lot of things, especially in the workplace. It was a big challenge to people's mental well-being and wellness. And still, even with the active virus gone, we still are left with the residue of that volatility. And of course, the second thing is the uncertainty. COVID brought with it a lot of the economic downturn and a lot of uncertainties in terms of people's ways and means of living, the whole standard of living and how to access better life. It came with its own challenges in terms of upheavals in the macro and the microeconomic environment. And, also brought with it complexities. And complexities basically is that these are not everyday occurrences. So there's no clear path to how to navigate. So we did discover that governments and institutions and subnationals were grappling with a lot of the evolving and emerging problems that's associated to COVID in a way that they've never seen or managed before. And we saw a situation where even in very advanced countries, people died in their thousands, if not in their hundreds. So it's really a challenge. And of course, the ambiguity that also now comes with all of this just suggests that post-COVID, we still live in a world where a lot of things pose a challenge. In Nigeria, it cannot be real than what you're experiencing now. So there has been COVID, and now we have a situation where subsidy is removed and the fuel price has gone to an average of 500 per liter. Diesel has gone up. Inflation is at double digits of 22.4, 22.5%. Unemployment, insecurity, a whole lot of stuff that basically just harangue and assail and challenge people's well-being, state of well-being. And so from VUCA, a new practice of mindfulness has come through, which is the deliberate, intentional way by which we confront all of these challenges in the environment and understanding that your mental strength and fortitude is necessary to be able to confront all these issues. Because if you are not mentally strong, then there's the likelihood that you're likely to fall apart at the seams, the likelihood that you are not going to be able to confront the situations with a strong mindset that speaks to the right kind of strategy and options and choices that will help you to be able to go through the challenges that might be confronting you. Part of the experience that we've seen post-COVID, for instance, in the workplace is the work from home. That's the WFH, which is now a normal occurrence. In my own workplace, we do 3 days of the week, 2 days off. So for instance, there's a typical holiday, we can spend almost a whole week by not going to work. And yet we have to be productive, yet we have to create value. We have to still be innovative to make sure that we meet clients' demands and needs, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of pressure all around. And I'm sure many of us remember that batcher that who said pressure tiwa. So there's pressure all over. It's so that sometimes when you also look at it critically, this pressure is sometimes one-sided. Pressure seems to be a lot more on the average man, for obvious reasons, than on the woman. Because from boyhood, men are taught to be able to take on responsibilities with a very stoic resolve. We are taught to be strong. We are taught to be the man. We are taught to ignore pain. We are taught to avoid any kind of emotional leakage. We are taught to cry is not to be a man. So you must not cry no matter what pain or pressure or problem you are going through. You have to man up to very grueling situations and problems. If you don't have food on the table, if you can't provide for your family, if you have no work, you have to still man up and show up with a bold face. You have to confront those situations and problems with skills that you do not even have. So that's a big challenge. And when you talk about the mental wellness, these are things that clearly has affected and still affecting a lot of men in the way they conduct themselves, in the way they relate to life, in the way they seek solutions to challenges. And life basically happens to man in this respect because of what we can also term as a God-given responsibility that man has, almost natural God-given responsibilities that man has. And these are classified under the 4 P's, as we can find, I think, also in the book of Psalms, actually Psalms 23. So first is that as a man, you're a priest, you're a pastor to your family. You are the one who is supposed to be the spiritual head and the spiritual lightning rod of the family. You have to be the one to pray the family to remain intact, to remain cohesive, to remain in alignment, to remain unified, and so on and so forth. Second is that you are the provider. Despite the fact that you're a pastor, you also have to be the one that have to meet the needs, the physical needs, the spiritual needs of your family. You have to contend with paying house rent, paying school fees, putting food on the table, ensuring that basic comfort is there for your wife and children. You also have to be the protector. And we are talking both physical protection and spiritual protection. Physical protection means that you have to ensure that you have a roof over the head of your family. Spiritual protection is also that you have to make sure that you pray for the protection of your family, calling on the spiritual realms to offer a haven and a hood over your family. And finally, you are the pursuer. You have to pursue the love and interest and sustain the love and interest of your family. Now, so to perform all of these functions is a great deal of responsibility, of the manliness that you that's bestowed on you, and that is enshrined in the spiritual requisites of being a man, of being a father, of being the one that takes care of the interest of the family and the general society at large. So indeed, what we find is that the girl child gets nurtured with skills from young age. They are trained to cook, they are trained to multitask, they are trained to cry, they are trained to show emotion, that's feminine to show emotion, they are trained to accommodate a lot of things. And that is why, ironically, because we've neglected to properly train the man, you find that the man, although might be silent, but is broken. And you have broken homes, you have men who themselves are broken, and that by extension, the home is broken, the family is broken. And that's why I was talking about as absentee fathers and absentee men. It's even worse. I was reading the news yesterday, and the young man that is not supposed to be a good example to people, some guy called Portable, joyfully walked into the compound of his fifth baby mama. And that one too was very happy. Alhamdulillah, we thank God for Portable being able to come to him to their house, claiming fatherhood of the child. That's the fifth child that is born, not married to the woman, and only God knows how many others are in line. So this is the kind of example of influencer that we see today, and the kind of example that a lot of the younger generation are open to, and that they see as a standard, as a yardstick, as a benchmark for behavior or for examples to be copied. Now you can then start understanding why you have to be intentional about your future, about the choices you make, about the options you take, about the path you choose, and indeed about how you navigate your own progression, your own professional progress, your own spiritual progress, and how your interests pan out at the end of the day. So we have a situation where, there's a lot of non-consciousness around the need for mentors, or rather, there's no conscious need for mentors because, again, majority of workplaces do not have benchmark, they do not have deliberate opportunities created for people to be mentored. So when you then talk about mentorship, it's not what you find in formalized, organized manners in many establishments, and that's a big challenge. So you can then understand that talking about mentorship, although it comes around a lot, I think only exists sometimes in some of the faith-based places and avenues. For instance, when people want to get married, they get counseled, and so they can talk about some level of mentorship in that respect, or maybe in church. But even that is just for brief, specific purposes. So it is therefore, there's no gainsaying mentioning the fact that mentorship becomes a very, very strong and inevitable platform that helps you to look back, so so you can get the experience or build experience on experience, that helps you to look forward, so you can get some hope. Again, looking at the aggregate of things that people that are supposed to mentor you have passed through. And it helps you to look around, to get real, because really, whatever you are going through today, or we are seeing in society today, it's a real deal, it's a real thing. So, you can't unwish it, you can't undo it. And of course, it also allows you to look within to discover yourself, to discover your strength, and be able to say, this is who I am, and this is, if you do like a SWOT analysis, this is how I'm able to navigate and go forward. If you are lucky, like some of us are, mentorship will help you to see the shege. When they say shege, the shege on the other side of inside life. When we talk inside life, rich experience the one inside life. You see the shege in that inside life without you necessarily experiencing it yourself. What that means is that you are lucky to be able to depend on the exposure and the experience of other people who have offered to guide you with their own experience, with their own history, you being able to take the right decision and take the right path. Because learning from experience of others basically makes it possible for us not to be able to fall into the same mistakes. We would also not necessarily subject ourselves to the same problems and challenges that they face. So how do we avoid the negatives that come with the problems of being a man, the negatives that come with the problems of being a father, the negatives that come with the pressures that we are confronted with, the negatives that result in doubts, self-doubt, in low self-esteem for the man, that results in anger, in frustration, in mood swings, and so on and so forth. How do we go through that? How do we resolve that? By asking for help through mentorship. And when we talk about real life situations of what's happening, I saw in the news again yesterday, a gentleman who actually shot his wife. He shot his wife because he said it took her too long to prepare his food. This happened in Delta State, in Edo State. And the wife of the governor had to go and visit the woman in pure raw anger. Because they had to amputate the woman's left hand, the husband shoots the wife because the food that she was preparing was delayed. And then you shoot your wife, you shoot her. And the wife of the governor was asking her, is this the first time this kind of thing is happening, this kind of abuse is happening? And the mother-in-law, the mother of the woman, of the wife said, no, it's not the first time. Each time it happens, the man comes back, begs, and the woman agrees and goes back to the house. Anyway, we have that kind of situation where people take out their frustration, men take out their frustration on what you call soft targets. We've seen where man killed the children because he's frustrated in his marriage. So how do we solve the problem of being able to access mentorship that should help us to be able to develop the skills and to be able to override some of these problems and challenges that we have? Men are not wired, unfortunately, to ask for help, and that's a big problem. Except for those who are wise. Men are wired, like I said initially, to be able to man up and face the situation themselves. We find it like, you're a weak person if you ask for help. But the truth is that you can't solve a problem by avoiding it. You can't solve a problem or overcome a problem by faking it. You overcome that problem by facing it and by going through it. So every father needs a mentor. Every man needs a mentor. You need an advisor. You need a friend in your corner. You need a teacher. You need somebody wise. You need a sage, somebody who will be in your corner, whose words of wisdom, whose lifestyle, whose ways of doing things, of conducting himself, or maybe sometimes herself, you can use to their own experiences to navigate life, to guide you through all the challenges that you'll be facing. It's very important to be able to do that. And it's a thing of strength to be able to seek help when one needs help. I did talk about the mental fortitude and strength earlier. That's where it starts from. If you are not able to get help, then you are likely to remain isolated and to be unable to access the kind of therapy that makes it possible for you to build the confidence, to build the skills that's required for you to be able to take on these challenges. And I speak in binary forms in this respect, mentorship in the formal setting in the office. Like I said, in many offices, this is not an established structure. There's no established structure to be able to take this on. It does happen, but it's not formalized, it's not organized. And of course, in the domestic setting, or if you like, the personal individual setting, where you also need mentors to be able to guide you through the choices that you make. I did speak earlier on about the fact that I'm going to, give a few narratives of my own personal experience and story to be able to indicate why mentors are necessary and how mentorship, frankly, has shaped, my own trajectory and where I am today. So the first story I'm going to tell us is about my undergraduate years. I went to a university that was were pioneering students. Well, the second set of students in the State University was 1983, 1984. And as you can imagine, it required a lot of sacrifice because a lot of things are not in place. Because the State University were operating an off-campus situation. So, in going through those challenges, we find a situation where we have to develop a sense of sacrifice, a sense of pioneering spirit, a sense of can do, because a lot of things that we need were not in place. But we had to make the best of it because, incidentally, we also had access to some of the best professors that were taken from very well established universities from Ife, Ibadan, and Lagos, especially renowned professors, renowned teachers, world-class teachers, who are all clearly intent in creating a university and students in us that they will all be collectively proud of, based on their own experience in those established universities and how to avoid the pitfall. So there we were, we were young, we were vulnerable, we were impressionable, but we also had to make very hard choices about our studies, about how to make progress. I think I was one of the very lucky few who recognized earlier on that, number one, that kind of pioneering spirit doesn't come every day. And that, it has to be seen as an opportunity to scale up with the spirit of resilience, with the spirit of taking on adventure, of the spirit of doing something from scratch with all the uncertainties that surround it, but also depending on people who have come from very well established places. Some of the lecturers we had were people who are the first, second set of University of Ibadan. So you can understand, how advanced they were. And these are people who have traveled all over the world, who have gone for academic laurels in much more established universities in the West, and who have come back, to lecture in Nigeria. So anyway, I was glad that I was able to be on the mentorship of most of these teachers, most of these professors. Part of the advantage that opened me to was the fact that, number one, I had access to very good libraries. So in being able to build my own intellectual knowledge and my studies, that was a very good resource. Number two is also that in the selection of courses, in the selection of subjects, in the navigation of what to study and all of this stuff, they gave us access to themselves. I in particular, I was very privileged to have virtually all my lecturers in the humanities, specifically in the English department, then take an interest and a liking to me. And, I had a lot of counsel from them in terms of what to do and how to approach my studies, in terms of the kind of interest that one should develop when it comes to discipline. So yes, it's true that I was studying English, but again, there are so many legs of what can be done. As a pioneering student then, I had a lot of interest. I was interested in creative art, in literature, in drama, in acting, and so on and so forth. And all of these things were open to me one way or the other. We had a lot of interaction from lecturers where we go to University of Ibadan, University of Ife for different kinds of engagement. So my vision changed. My vision changed because just to give you an example, as a 200 level student, I was already a freelance writer for The Guardian. Now, this was 1983, 1984. The Guardian started in 83. And by 1984, 85, I was a freelance writer for The Guardian in my school. That was a big deal because The Guardian was a flagship and still regarded as a very good newspaper outfit even today. But at that time, for you to have any kind of affiliation with The Guardian was the ultimate. And how did this happen? This happened because one of my teachers, who was, I think, the dean then, Professor Leslie, took me on a trip to The Guardian. She was a columnist with The Guardian then. And there was the world-renowned Dr. Stanley Makibu, one of the biggest media practitioners that has ever come out of Nigeria. He was a managing director, and I was introduced to him as one of the best students from Ogun State University, now called Olabisi Onabanjo University. And that basically changed my life because that was the basis by which I was able to do an internship. And after the internship, I started off as a correspondent, as a freelance correspondent for The Guardian, sending these stories from in and around Jebu Ode, Ogun State, and all of that there. So much so that by the time I completed my education and I went to serve in Benue State in a school where I taught English and literature. But by the time I came back to Lagos, I didn't even need to do an interview. I was given automatic employment by The Guardian. And why? Because, and I can never forget what Mr. Femi Kusa was the editor said. He said, from get-go, they found me good enough to be cultivated. So even though it had been like about 2-3 years between when I was an intern and a freelance and when I finished and went to serve, it was good enough, for them to bring me on. And in fact, I was doing two jobs for the price of one, so which was also remarkable for me. Now, The Guardian opened me, as the first major formal job that I did, to the world of what you can call superstars, people who you only read about and you see on TV. And I had an opportunity for all of them to be seen as they walk into our newsroom, for me to interview them, interview governors, ministers, superstars. And what that meant was that, the opportunity that I have started molding and shaping my starting out and evolution, like I said, from a worker to a staff. The moral here was that I was very hungry, I was very passionate, and I made myself available and teachable. And that's very important when you're talking about mentorship. The mentorship experience for me was not based on opportunism. It wasn't based on superficial needs. It wasn't based on a sense of entitlement. It was based on the fact that I need to better myself. I need to improve myself. I need to prove my own mettle. When some of you might remember somebody called Dr. Olatunji Dari. When I was at The Guardian, Dr. Olatunji Dari was the chairman of the editorial board. Many of you know Ruben Abadi today, but Abadi could not hold candle to Dr. Dari then as chairman of the editorial board. Abadi came much, much later. Incidentally, we also met there with my friend. But the point was that people like Dr. Dari, renowned lecturer, renowned professor, he teaches in the US now, was one of those people who kept encouraging me that you write well, continue to write. And here I was a reporter, I was a sub-editor, but they encouraged me to also be writing my own columns. And some of the opinion articles that I wrote then are things that I still cherish to today. So mentorship opens you to some kind of some opportunities that you should not let let it pass by. Today, what we find, unfortunately, is a situation where people try to use people rather than try to utilize opportunities to their own advantage. Today, what we find is a situation where people try to focus on pecuniary gains and material gains. They want money rather than wanting to acquire and get skills that can make them become a lot more proficient. So, by the time I got to 400 level, for instance, in my university days, all my lecturers wanted to supervise my long lesson. They wanted to supervise my project. Why? Because I built personal relationship with almost all of them. And that relationship was almost entirely intellectual, was almost entirely based on developing and honing my skills. I was a very good actor. Like I said, I was interested in creative art. All the university convocation plays, I took the lead roles, I superintended them. I was the pioneer chairman of what we call a Rumila performing troupe then. We didn't have a performing arts department at that time. Through those acting, I traveled to Ife, I took part in Wole Soyinka plays. I acted on Soyinka's 50th birthday way back, I think, in 84, 85, when he turned 50. One of the convocation plays that I played in the university then, The Lion and the Jewel, incidentally, Mrs. Soyinka then, his first wife, Mrs. Yesterday Soyinka, was our chief librarian. The next day she called me and said, I've seen all of Wole's plays, and in particular, I've seen Lion and the Jewel acted many, many times, but you did fantastic yesterday. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of encouragement when you have the right kind of mentors. There's a lot of insight that they provide. When I was going to do my final essay, the head of the department had to weigh in, and by fear, I had to say, look, I'm the one who's going to supervise the gentleman. And he did. And there was something that man said at that time that, look, what I think you should do in his career is go to UCLA, University College of Los Angeles, and go and read acting and directing for your master's. Okay? I mean, the old notion there was that I was supposed to come back to the university as a lecturer and all that, but again, that really didn't happen. But here I am, almost 40 years later, I'm now actually not only studying acting and directing, that's line of investment for me in terms of entrepreneurship. So this was Dr. Bolade Oshino, as head of the department, who said this almost 40 years ago. And today, that's what I'm returning to after doing journalism, after doing marketing communication, after doing advertising and having several different types of investment. My point, therefore, is that when you stand on the shoulder of giants, they have seen where you can get to and where you can go. I can only be lucky to depend on the insight that they provide for you to be able to navigate your path. For you to be able to get a lot more proficient in areas that they might have mapped out for you, or that they might have suggested or advised you to be able to take as a road path. And so for me, it's also very important, therefore, that they take away and the learning from this kind of situation, because something that's second nature to you throughout life. So when you look at everything that has been done for me as the university undergraduate and at the onset of my career, I realized that one, learning to use the traditional mode of mentorship is very important, because the one-on-one mode, because it helps you to identify opportunities through the advice and mentorship of others. Second is that it teaches you to be genuine, to be open, to be willing, to be focused, to be disciplined. Because if you are not all of these things, these people, most of them don't suffer fools gladly. There are people who are trained in the old, very formal, very strict, regimented university environments where intellectual rigor is something that is of great importance to them. So that was a very major turning point for me, that I think also helped to set the right foundation in setting out. So by the time I spent 1 year at the Guardian, I'd been exposed to so many things. But I was both a reporter, I was covering the judicial bits, and I was also a sub-editor. So I was able to edit, I was able to write headlines, to edit stories, to rewrite stories, the brevity, the speed that comes to that. Naturally, I progressed from doing that to becoming a copywriter in the marketing communication environment. So I moved from media to marketing communication, but the foundation was very strong from those universities, and there was clarity in terms of the kind of path of interest that I might have, and indeed to the kind of help that is available to me. The second story I want to tell has to do with more of my professional years. So by the time I left the guidance in 1989 and I came into advertising, um, I started work in a place called Serve in 1989. And before then, I had worked in a small agency called Serve. Now, what has also happened is that getting into this was based on the what I can call it the adoptive mentorship of people that I've seen in that industry who have done very well and who have become beacons and icons that one should emulate. I have in mind people like Prince Kendi Adeosun. Many of you will not know him. You might never even have heard of him. But indeed, these are behemoths when it comes to advertising in Nigeria in the 80s and the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. They were just they were the ones that ruled the entire place like Colossus. And a lot of them, that those first and second generation advertising practitioners came from broadcasting. So they had unique voices, they had strong formal training when it comes to things like presentations, intonations, and all of that stuff. So there was so much to learn from these people: the discipline, the rigor, the structure, the templating that they bring or they brought to situations and the context to be able to solve marketing problems, to be able to solve communication problems, to be able to resolve branding problems was just totally unique. And so we had that kind of influence. You had those kind of people who now became your bosses and you had access to them. And of course, in no time, because I had people like Prince Kendi Adeosun, who still has, I think, one of the most unique voices that Nigeria ever produced, I bring you under his wing. And within the first year, I became the staff of the year in that environment. Again, what this meant was that there was a great deal of interest in people willing and wishing to mentor you, even in the workplace, but without the formal notion and template of saying, okay, I want to mentor you, just that you have access to them. I can look at those positive values and aspects of their lifestyle to be able to improve your own offerings too. One of the people also in advertising that impacted a lot in who I became in life as a mentor is somebody called Dr. Bionisho Banjo, and I'm sure some of you will have heard of him. He was the one that started the Troika Group that owns Inside, that owns Alochin, and a whole host of other businesses. Now, let me tell you one simple but unique story about Dr. Shumbanjo. Even as a young staff and working in Promoserve, I never worked Inside. My wife's office was directly opposite Inside. And each time I was dropping my wife off, like usually between 6:45 and 7 a.m. every day, it's either Dr. Shumbanjo is driving in at about that 7 a.m. or is already parked. And he was the owner of the business, and even at that time was already a very big man. And it was clear to me that there's no way you make a headway in life if you do not have the rigor of discipline, self-discipline, to understand that you have to self-regulate. So I was completely taken in by somebody who was already, a very big person, a very big icon in the industry, but who still had the discipline of turning up in the office by 7 a.m. every morning before every other staff resumed. I copied that. And I made sure that by all means I resume in my office before 7 every day is through. I copied the fact that, which I also took from one of my seniors, Mr. Lulu Akinwumi. When you go for meetings, there's something we call contact report, which is basically the report of the meeting. I made sure that my reports are ready even before I get back to the office. So I sent the report back to the client. And it became a pattern. It became a pattern that was second nature to me. Because once you're able to do your report, it means that all the action points from that meeting, you're able to share it, you're able to action it, and you're able to follow up on it. So what am I saying? All of these were, period that was characterized by a lot of movements, career progression, and eventually a decision that I had to take about, taking the plunge as an entrepreneur after, close to 16 years working in Promoserve, working in started Prima Garnet, and so on and so forth. Now, you must understand that for those who know are familiar with When you want to start out as an entrepreneur, it is not about your competence. It's not about your expertise. It is not about how well you are known or how well you've done. It's a lot more goes into it. And I was in that situation where I had to take that plunge. Of course, you can understand my state of mind. And that was when I realized that more than any other time, I needed to have definite access to mentors, to people who can guide me. Because one thing to have the idea, it's another thing to have the confidence, it's another thing to have the competence to navigate being now somebody who is in charge of balance sheets, in charge of profit and loss, in charge of investors' funds that you have to try and manage. And it's very, very important to therefore bear in mind that in this kind of state of mind, of course, the first person you discuss that kind of thing with is your wife. Now, again, I was very lucky and open, I guess. So luck is for one hand, but I guess I was also open to the fact that I needed help. And the help came in the form of my neighbor. Now, the interesting story about, quote unquote, this my neighbor, is that he was actually my landlord. But part of what I caught from him from get-go was that, he never sees us as tenants. He never called us tenants. When he was introducing us to people, he always called us neighbors. And then from day one, when I went into his house, he called me and he said, this house where you are, I was not the one that bought the land. It was my own former landlord, his own former landlord, where he was living in Sulu. It was one that bought the land and came to tell him that, look, I bought the land for you. Come and pay me the money. So it's time for you to move to your own house. Now, when you have that kind of person say to you that you're not going to live here forever, so bear it in mind that one day you have to leave this place and move to your own house. I mean, I'm sure that you can imagine what kind of challenge that brings you and what kind of inspiration it is. And when you also now look at the totality of the lifestyle of this person that you're talking about, you begin to understand how the mentorship with that kind of person, the values that person has, the principle that a person operates by becomes an invaluable asset to you. Now, this Prince Duro Inola, who I was talking about, who was my landlord and who was my neighbor, happened to be the leading light in the UAC group there. The UAC was the biggest, before you had banks and MTN, UAC was the biggest conglomerate in Nigeria. If you worked in UAC, if you're a manager in UAC, if you're a managing director in UAC, you are the biggest thing to happen. And he particularly had a renown for being one with a Midas touch. Any division that has a problem, they send him there, turns it around, and they come out clean, And that was how good it was. So imagine me going to this person. So after I told my wife I want to start my own business, it was the next person that I went to. And we spent about 2 hours that evening, and he was telling me about how it's possible and about how I can make the difference, about how to create values that is different from what the industry already knows or is used to, about how to bring together investors, about how to focus on what is essential and what should be priority, about how to operate on delayed gratification, and about how material things should never be the primary focus of setting out and looking out for success. Now, I'm saying all of this so that we can understand that, number one, there's no shortcut to anywhere that's worth going. It has to be done through very rigid, very, grueling, very deliberate, very rigorous process of evolution. Indeed, Prince Oyelola went on to become our first chairman of Veterans Group when we started in 2007. I was for many years our chairman until he passed away sadly a few years ago. He was the one that taught me, like I mentioned initially, was one that taught me a very strong spiritual interface that exists between faith and business. Many people don't do business for doing sake. And you don't understand that you need faith in God, first and foremost, and take faith in yourself and your capacity and capabilities to be able to navigate as a second thing. So it takes us back again to the issue of mental fortitude and wellness, and also to the issue of values, vision, and capacity in a very deliberate and intentional manner. So in all of that, you are holding your skills, you are building a reserve, you are building your strength, you are building your capacity to be able to do more, to be able to multitask. And the takeaway for me in those professional years and the people that I was exposed to, the Prince Kende Adeosun, the Lulu Akiwumis, the Biodun Shobanjos, the George Tops, the Larry Ballets. I mean, these are people that didn't even work directly in advertising, they were on the client side. But they were very brilliant people like Larry Ballets. I saw him yesterday. These are people, I mean, Larry is a pharmacist, but he's as brilliant as they come. Today, he's one that runs the Netherlands Business School in Nigeria, churning out people who are skilled business warriors in the MBA area. So, the takeaway for me is the issue of trust, the openness, the adaptability, the right chemistry, the constructive challenge, the curiosity, the passion, the questioning, to be able to interrogate things, to make sure that you understand it before you move ahead, the discipline, the sacrifice, all of which are necessary characteristics that are needed when you talk about good and formidable mentorships. I've given these two examples just so that I can use that to signpost why and how mentors are very, very important. In fact, when you look at mentors or mentorship, generally there are three ways that is established by which mentorships happen. One is the traditional one-on-one. Second is the what you call the distance. So somebody can be far from you, but you have an agreement by which that person tutors you, mentors you, and guides you. And the third one is what they call the group format, which is that you have an agreement of people who are under somebody's wings and that are being brought up in specific nuggets and ways of behavior. But the one that I find useful is actually the one that I call the adoptive or proxy mentorship, which means that you have people that they don't even know that they are your mentors, but their lifestyle, their rigor, their value systems, their value orientations are what you have decided to adopt to be able to navigate. And then there are those that you have access to, who you are able to interrogate them, ask questions, and they can tell you one or two things about what you should do. But it's very, very important that we understand that above everything else, it's the capacity to humbly be able to seek for help, to humbly submit ourselves to the advice and to the experience of other people for us to be able to make our own deductions of how we want to go about it. So, the best approach for me for mentorship is the adoptive one, like I said. And this means that you can have multiple mentors who you select based on, an adoption of their values and their principles, whether in the formal corporate setting or even in the domestic setting. In essence, all this means that you go beyond the known traditional group, distant type of mentorship to be able to make things happen. I found this very useful over the years in helping to hone my own knowledge, my own interpersonal skills. I learned to write better by copying people. I learned to speak better by copying people. I learned to dress better by copying people. I learned to carry myself better by mirroring what other people do. I got a sense of confidence from how people present. The first time when you're in advertising, it's fundamental. If you can't present, then you are gone. It's just like if you're a lecturer and you can't publish, you are gone. So one of the fundamental things that I had to learn early on was how to present. My first presentation as a young executive in PromoServe in 1989, I can't ever forget, it was the old Access Bank. And, I was supposed to present the PR. I didn't sleep overnight. I memorized everything. I rehearsed in front of a mirror. So naturally, by the time I got to the presentation, I was on top of my game. And that shows the level of preparation that goes into building a strong team by playing your own part and playing your own role very well. So, in nurturing that professional development side of me, it has to be outside the normal line of management, supervised mentorship in the work environment. So I have a mentor for every situation, for every need. Some of them are, some are them known public figures. Others are what I call heroes of the quiet space. I've mentioned Dr. Olugbodi Shobanjo as a hero in my profession. I've mentioned Lulu Akiwumi. I've mentioned people like George Top, who was a behemoth again at Smithland and Bicham, and who himself had 3 generations of of pharmacists and marketers and marketeers who went on to establish very big companies. I mean, these are people who laid the foundation for the success of companies like MTN today from the marketing space. People like Dr. Larry Barlett that I mentioned. And, we also have other people like, if you also talk about, and I can talk about the different dimensions. So the Biodun Shobajo for me is, the doyen and inspiration in the industry. There's a Pastor Sam Adeyemi, who I'm older than, but as you can tell, he's larger than life. His mere, his courage, his comportment, the strength of what I call the Christian character in him, and the conviction by which he speaks and carries himself, makes the whole Christian spiritual journey alluring. You don't get tickled off, you don't get rankled, you don't get offended. That's something that I always wish that I do and do very well. So he's my mentor in that respect. There's my own pastor, Reverend Julius Adeniji, humble Baptist Christian pastor who comes from a very deep background. But one thing I take away from him is somebody who is deeply, deeply, deeply committed to self-growth, over and beyond what is required of him within the Baptist setting, for instance. He goes on to learn new skills, learn new things, learn to use self-taught, when it comes to the issue of technology. He's very technology savvy. He likes to travel, he likes to read, he's an author himself. He likes to test and explore new things. And that, again, the whole humility with which he manages that whole ecosystem without being obtrusive and intrusive, without being in your face, really ministers to me. And, it's the same reason why for a very sensitive person like me, I've attended the same church now for, almost 37 years, the same church continuously for 37 years. So that's the extent of conviction that you have when people have values, So for him, it's about the Christian ethics. There's Uncle Sam Amuka, and I'm mentioning names so that I'm hoping that you yourself, you'll be able to start pinpointing people that you might be able to select, either in an adoptive way or in a formal way to say, look, I have a mentor for every situation in my life. Uncle Sam was 88 yesterday. Sam Amuka is the publisher of Vanguard. Again, this is somebody who, when I have any issue, I go to him and say, sir, I don't understand this. What do you think? How can you help? And one of the humility one of the things I learned from him is the ability for what you call retrospective mentorship. So he also learns things from me. And that's a strength that I've also now learned to develop. I'm also learning from those who are junior to me. I work in the marketing communication space. And the biggest strength you can have as a marketing communication expert is to understand the market. And to understand the market means that you need to have intelligence about the market. For you to have intelligence about the market means that you need to have the right kind of connection with the market, so you understand what is being said, what is not being said, how the behavior patterns are imagined, and how those things are informing, for instance, and impacting the sales and purchase decision that people are making. Now, you can't do that, you can't detach from the market and from a particular target. And the largest group of targets in today's market are the Gen Zs, and then after that, the millennials. Now, this is a very peculiar set of people that you need to take time out to be able to understand how they behave and how they work. And I can't do that because I'm not a Gen Z, I'm not even a millennial. And the only way you can do that is when you learn from them. So I'm talking about the ability to do it. So Uncle Sam is for the belief in they can do, ability and capacity of his subordinates. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, even if you never met him, you must have heard about it. Obafemi Awolowo was the first president that contested as the biggest Yoruba leader way back in 1963. 30 years later, in 1993, was an MPO contested. 30 years later, you have a Yoruba president of Yoruba extraction, who now rules, who has followed the pattern and the trajectory established by Awolowo, who has tried to follow the philosophy of Awolowo. What am I saying? I'm saying that when you have very strong characters who have tied to very strong principles, it is the way to go. Awolowo established the West in terms of the strength that the West has today, because when he was there, everything that is first in Nigeria and in Africa, first TV station, biggest, tallest building in Africa, first biggest stadium in Africa, and so on and so forth. It was one that did it. And that can only come from a place of vision. Free education at all levels, free and compulsory education. It was called universal primary education. Now, please understand, even globally, what is acknowledged is that the most important education that is necessary for you, that is foundational, is primary education. After that, every other thing you don't need. Every other thing is just an add-on. And yet he did this and made it compulsory. So you can understand where the depth of vision comes from. So for that, somebody like Olugbodi for me is the sagacity, the political sagacity, and the depth of leadership vision that is still there till today, okay, 60 years later. If you look at Dr. Nelson Mandela, big mentor of mine, I never met him in person. I went to his prison in Robben Island when I had an opportunity. But again, this is somebody who sacrificed personal comfort for the emancipation of his people. He very well have taken it personal when he became president, eventually after he left prison, by jailing everyone that was responsible for his nightmare. But he didn't do that. He became a great philosopher, became a very temperate mitigating factor in areas of conflict from all around the globe, very well respected, very highly respected. And becoming global statesman is not something that you can pretend to be. It's not something that you can claim, without earning it. So it's important for you to understand that whatever principles make somebody go to jail for 25 years and not come out bitter must be a very strong thing to learn from. I have people that I learned from that, like I said, they operate in that quiet space. There's somebody called Ogamusa. I've known Ogamusa now for almost 30 years. He was a mechanic that was introduced to me casually by a friend. Now, Ogamusa is a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but I'll leave my cars with Ogamusa from now to Kingdom Come because I know that he's honest. He will never cheat on anything. He will never cheat on any party. That's the way he's wired. And I've known him for 30 years. And to all the people I've recommended it to, he has never failed. So there must be something in the character composition of that kind of person that is of high value, that is of high impact, that one should see and be able to learn from. So I learn from him, and even when he's under pressure, he's always smiling. When he's confronted with situations, he's always smiling. When he needs help, he will come to say, okay, we need to go bye-bye, rather than either trying to be smart or whatever. It would never happen. I have a guy called Tayo Mustafa. Tayo Mustafa has also been my driver for almost 30 years. Of course, graduated from being a driver now to be even more than a personal assistant. He's also an ustad. He's a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a deacon. But what do you find in this kind of person? What I find in this driver of mine of almost 30 years is diligence, is the sense of responsibility, is the loyalty, is the trust, is the sense of responsibility that he uses to discharge his all that he does. And I look at his life and I'm saying to myself, it's only God that can bless people when you have the right kind of value. What do I learn from him? I never see this guy spend money frivolously. He lives in his own house. He has his own vehicles, his own cars. He has 2 or 3 cars, all of which I knew how he acquired it. And yet I would never see him spread frivolously. I mean, he's not miserly, but he's a very careful spender. And so all his children are well educated. They've gone to the 4 walls of university, and they travel and come from abroad like they wish. And yet, he never saw the 4 walls of a university. How can that kind of mentorship not minister to you? So I'm trying to let you understand, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if there are ladies in the audience, but I'm trying to let you understand that you have to do a certain kind of transformation when your mind is renewed in certain respects and certain dimensions. All right? And all of this aggregate of stuff that I've been talking about in the last, almost 60 minutes, is that there are benefits that accrue when you have the right kind of mentor, and when you yourself develop yourself to the point where you're a mentor to other people, which is why I think by the grace of God I've become. But by the time I started my business, there were clear things that were no juices for me. So I took pride in making sure that people that work with me either have the right kind of professional and career fulfillment, or they become very good success themselves. And I'm glad, I'm pleased that a lot of people come back to me to say, you know what, you is setting us up to do this, to do this, to do this. is all we needed to be able to make a headway, and we are doing well. So part of the benefits, and I'm rounding up shortly now, is that one, there's an improved personal development and career development. It's inevitable when you are open and exposed to the right kind of principles and virtues and guidelines that regulate how you confront life. Then it's inevitable that there's some kind of development in growth in that trajectory. Second is productivity. We discovered that because you operate the tenets and principles of focus, of discipline, of circumspection, of priority, of reality, of focusing on the right kind of things and not just on pecuniary gains, then your productivity will get better because you are very focused on the end results. You are focused on the big picture. You are focused on developing and honing the right kind of skills or the right kind of helicopter ability and so on and so forth. The third thing is that when you have the right kind of environment, an ecosystem that breeds good mentors, you're also breeding leaders and champions. And so that's the only way that's why I said, what we need is really to understand the need for us to continue to breed mentors who can mentor other people, even as they are being mentored themselves. So leaders and champions. Leaders are not born. Leaders are made. Okay, they are not born. They are made. They go through preparation. They go through training. They go through skills analysis, skills gap analysis. They go through skills enhancements to become the champions that they have. And then, of course, it also helps you to improve your skills and your knowledge. When you are exposed to the expertise, experience, exposure of other people, your knowledge increases. Your intellectual knowledge increases. And very important that you bear that in mind. All right. And of course, if you look at it from the corporate setting, it's also about building a learning culture, a learning individual, and a learning culture, collective culture of learning. When you're a learning organization, it's about continuous improvement. There will be no atrophy. There will be no way that you die. There's no way that you become stuck in the cul-de-sac. Why? Because everything that is evolving in that whole dynamic space, you are coming to terms with it, you are understanding it, you are abiding with it by knowing how to navigate it. So when you're learning individuals, continuous improvement and continuous education. So finally, for me, is the whole. I think this is a very important point to make. It helps to strengthen confidence when you are exposed to very good mentors, when you are exposed to very good training, when your skills are enhanced. No matter what happens, there's a minimum threshold, there's a minimum strike level in terms of the kind of confidence that you exude. It also helps you to manage diversity and inclusion, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But having said all of this, there are also impediments to why mentorship is not happening the way it should happen, or why people are not able to subject themselves to good mentorship ecosystem, whether formal or informal. One is the issue of being self-centered. A lot of people, a lot of professionals, and some of you are in this audience today, and I'm going to challenge you. They're very self-centered because they're only looking out for their own interest. They are pushed around by their problems rather than by being led by their dreams. They are drifters. All right, they are afraid of their own shadow. They are afraid that somebody will overshadow them. Somebody will be bigger than them. The moment you lose the confidence of you being able to stand on your own and build your own thing on your own terms, and being evaluated based on your own established benchmarks, then you've lost it. You will never be able to gain the kind of confidence that will make you stand head and shoulders in any space that requires project evaluation. So self-centeredness, and this I think particularly, and please pardon me if I'm saying so, it's a trait that is found with Gen Zs, and increasingly also with the generation Alpha that is coming. They are very focused on themselves and their own interests. They don't care what happens. And sometimes this causes a lot of problem for them, even in terms of situational awareness. So you can't be a drifter in your own situation, in your own case, and how you need to go. Second thing is, like I said, it's also the fear of competition from peers. People are afraid of other people's success. No. When people succeed, by and inspired and by your contribution, it's good for you. Because the more successes, success begets success. When you look out for the success of other people, whether members of your own team or other people, what they are doing infinitely is also you are enhancing the propensity and the possibility of your own success on a continual basis. There's also the intellectual laziness for people. Some people are just lazy, and also sometimes physical laziness from just being able to take advantage of the opportunity that's open to them by being able to relate with people or somebody that they can learn one or two things from. So that intellectual laziness also transforms into all sorts of atrophy. You can't just move, you are just immobilized. You are just in that daydream of what can happen, and yet you never make anything happen. So they look for other escapes, other ways to actualize those things that they fear and that they're afraid of. And that's why a lot of people get stuck in all the terrible things. Now, in rounding off, the question that we should be asking, and I'm going to be shorting of very soon, is that what does mentorship thrive on? How does mentorship thrive? We want to build a community, an ecosystem of champions, of leaders, of good mentors, a tribe of mentors. We want to build it, we want to nurture it, we want to grow it. How do we build? How do we get it? And it comes simply from what I call relationships, pure and simple. Now, I guarantee you, there's no way you progress in life. No way you progress in life, no matter which sphere you find yourself, no matter what unit, what department, no matter what function you are given. If you are not able to build, to nurture, to sustain relationships, you will fail, I'm pretty sure. Because everything that has to do with your success is tied to you being able to relate with other people. Remember, I mentioned the issue of diversity. I mentioned the issue of difference. So those are things that are key. And how do you sustain or build relationship? How do you make sure that relationship becomes something that can be strengthened to help you through the ecosystem of mentorship? I call this the forces. I base this on the forces. One is the need for conversations. If we build a relationship and you're not able to make good conversations, to strike good conversations, to interact with people, to dialogue with people, then you can't go far. So it's a skill that you must learn. For you to be able to approach somebody for help, for you to be able to express yourself to somebody that you need to learn from, or that you need to adopt as a mentor, that people need to see you as a mentor. You have to be able to make the right kind of conversation. You have to be able to strike the right kind of conversation and interaction. And that will come from a place where you seek, to understand people by what they say, and not that you listen to react to people. So in all of this is the skill of listening, the skill of introspection, the skill of how to respect, of circumspection, and so on and so forth. So that's the first conversation. The second one has to do with connection. Now you can make conversations and you are not connecting with people. And that connection is, I used the word earlier on chemistry. If you're not connecting with people, then you are just talking to yourself. It's just a one-way discussion. So connection is about meaningful embrace of diversity and differences. When you talk about the team, for me, I always define team as together, everybody achieves more. A team can only be as strong as the weakest part of that whole league, of that whole chain. So connection is about meaningful embrace of the diversity and differences. When you look at the old Nigerian anthem, say, though tribes and tongues may differ, in unity we stand. There's unity in diversity, and hopefully we are going to get it right as a nation sometime soon, by understanding that our differences really is the strength that we have. The third C for me is community. And community is also about the discipline to be able to relate with other people by belonging and being accounted for, by being accountable and being accounted for. You cannot belong in the community if your behavior pattern is abrasive, is uncouth, it's consonant with what you can call good behavior. You're not likely to be able to belong in a community. And if you don't belong in a community, how can you relate with people? So belonging and being accounted for in other communities is very important. Finally, is the issue of culture. And culture basically is about shared values and largely co-creation. When you have shared values, what it means that in spite of our differences, there are values that we can use to interdepend on each other, that we can learn from each other. And those core values and those self-values and those collective values reflect the culture that depicts who we are, whether as an organization, in this case we are talking BCI, or even in your family. So when you say Lila Wusamoluruko, what they mean is that where you are coming from reflects and depicts the kind of name that you bear, and by extension, the kind of reputation that you carry. So culture is very, very strong, and any forward-looking, forward-thinking organization is always bullish and always clearly intent on building the right kind of culture. And I believe that the greatest threat to securing and nurturing the right kinds of mentorship network today, frankly, is, and sadly so, is lack of social capital. Social capital. And social capital is basically your inability to communicate, to connect, to commune, to converse with other people. When you don't have a social capital, then there's something seriously wrong, because you can't make any progress. You cannot make any progress. So in conclusion, what I'd like to leave us with is the fact that everyone, every single person, especially men, and especially fathers, must learn and understand that your net worth is determined by your network. I'm sure you've heard that before. The sum total of what you can be and what you will be is determined by the quality of the network that you have, the quality of people that you have access to, the quality of people that can stand in the gap for you, the quality of people that can advise you, the quality of people that can have your back. So your network is impacted by the quality, also by the quality of the relationship that you build, that you nurture, and that you sustain. Your net worth is defined by your network. Your network is impacted by the quality of the relationships that you build, you're able to build, you're able to nurture, you're able to sustain. And of course, the overall success that can be extracted and achieved from your relationships will be determined by the shared values, by the exposure, by the experience, and the expertise that your mentors and your mentorship forays help you to create. It is sum total of all of the people that can impact you, advise you, counsel you, guide you. It's what defines the level of success that is reflected in your shared values. All right. So my counsel is this. You have to be the mentor you need to have in other people by paying it forward. You paying it forward simply is that you have to be the mentor that you need to be, so that we can continue to build a tribe of mentors. And of course, the world will be better for it. So I wish you all happy Father's Day, all the men that are in the room and all the women, by the way, who are playing the role of men as priests, as providers, as protectors, and as pursuers. God bless you and happy Father's Day. My name remains Tunji Olugbodi. I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening to me. And I hope I've been able to share some useful nuggets with you in the last 1 hour, 15 minutes or so. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very so much, Dr. Tunji Olugbodi. These have really been so insightful and so impactful. Thank you so much taking us through this journey. Most times everybody sees somebody up there, and then you just assume they dropped from heaven and they were never trained to become what they became. But no matter what you become in life, there's always somebody that you look up onto, there's somebody you deliberately commit yourself to and say, please show me how this is done. Show me how that is done. It's really been so insightful. It's been so impactful. Somebody said the greatest good you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own riches. There's something in every one of us, and you just don't always see it. But there's somebody that has also passed through what you've passed through. Once upon a time, he too was just telling himself, I'm not sure anything good can come out of my life. I'm not sure I can become anybody in life. You know, that a mentor will see you and will say, oh, I've been there before. I'm one of you. I've been like you before. Let me show you the way I was able to go from a nobody to, by God's grace, becoming a somebody. John Maxwell says, one of the greatest values of mentors is the ability to see ahead what others cannot see and to help them navigate a course to this destination. That's I mean, how important mentors are. And that is just, I mean, what Dr. Tunji Olugbodi had really captured in his lecture. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you. We appreciate all that you have shared. You know, I remember the story of a man that mentored his son in a sport that he was good at. And the boy also learned so well from his father. And at the point, the boy felt, oh, my father is getting old. I think I know better than him. And he seriously challenged his father and said, I'm challenging you to play this game against me. And I can assure you, sir, I will win. And then they played the game. And interestingly, the father defeated him. And the boy was so curious, said, how were you able to do it? Even when you are aging, you could also still defeat me. And the father told him, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you all I know. In other words, even a mentor keeps improving. And so if it teaches you something today, it is not stopping there. It will have some people he's looking up to. He has some books he's reading. He has some lives that are forming and shaping it. So for you that is a mentee, you don't graduate. You don't graduate from the school of mentorship if you really want to keep going far. All right, so thank you so much, sir. I will just quickly take some of the questions here, and I want Dr. Tunji Olugbodi to answer them. I don't know whether you can do it in 10 minutes. You know, there is a joke of an Igbo man that fell ill and he was in the hospital. And then one day, all his sons started coming to greet him in the hospital. The first guy entered, he said, hey, well done, Baba, sorry. Then the second one entered, the third one entered. You know, when he got to the fifth one, the sick man got up on his bed. He said, Chinedu, Emeka, Uche. And he called all the children. He said, all of you are here. I said, yes, Papa, we are all here. You must get well. He said, so who can they show? He said, we are all here. Say, you are all here. Who can they show? You know, so the moral of it is that all the guys listening today, as much as we are learning, work is waiting for us. So who can they show? All right, so let Dr. Olugbodi come up again. You're going to be taking, I mean, some of the questions. I know some of the questions you have answered in the course of the lecture. The first one says, what are some effective strategies for seeking feedback and guidance from my mentor? I think I should just, all the questions are in the chat box. So I think I will just take everything. Strategies for seeking feedback and guidance from my mentor. And then secondly, what can organizations do to create and encourage positive intra-mentorship? The third one is, how do I select individuals to be my mentors in any environment? And the fourth one is, what are the criteria involved in choosing mentors? So, sir, if you are still with us, I want you to come back and then answer these questions.
All right, thank you very much. I think Let me start with the last question. I think the last two questions are more or less the same. How do I select and what's the criteria? I think the number one for me is that you need to do what I call a mapping, a profile mapping, or self-mapping. And that will have to do with your own goals, your personal goals and aspirations, your career goals and aspirations, and I'll see how that is tied to, if it's in a formal setting, your corporate goals and aspirations. This is when I talk to people and I'm interviewing. Frankly, what I'm looking for is more of alignment, because I'm open to the realities of what's happening. Number one, I'm asking the question, what's your interest here? Why do you need this job? Number two, I'm asking, how long do you think you can do this job? What are your other plans?
Sorry,
Number,
Dr.
your
TJ,
plans.
can you
Number
put
three
on
is
your video? All right, thank you, sir.
okay, so can you hear me now? All right, so I'm asking the question, I mean, when I'm talking to people, your own personal plan and aspiration, I'm asking the timelines for what and when you want to activate stuff that's personal to you. I'm asking questions about how we can align your own career aspirations and the corporate goals and objectives. Where I'm going is that if there's no formal mapping of what you want to do and how you want to do it, you won't also then understand what you need, and to that extent, the kind of criteria you should look for, who should be your mentor. In my own case, like I did try to point to, I have a mentor for almost everything. I mean, whether it's spiritual or even some of the most mundane, but everything is tied to values. So how do you select and what should be the criteria? I think how you select is number one, you clearly need to look out for people that can clearly be established that by their years of exposure, experience, performance, value, proposition, behavior, lifestyle can impact positively on what you want to do and what you want to achieve. Basically, you are looking for people who can be inspiration for you. You are looking for people who can be catalysts for you. You are looking for people who, if you're able to reach them, they can stand in your corner and speak for you. You are looking for people who can intervene and maybe sometimes intercede for you. In most of the cases, what I try to do is not to look for people who can offer me material gains or financial gains. No. What you want to do, even the Bible says, I give you the power to make wealth. So it is you activating the power. It is not making the wealth. If you don't understand how to activate, utilize, and expend the power, then even when you make the wealth, you won't know that you made it. And to a large extent, you won't know how to keep it. So I need you to understand that your selection is based on personal values that then aligns with the external values that you're looking for in that person. So that should be the criteria, and that should be the basis for the selection. And like I said, the selection can be various. There are people that are mentors that you never meet or they have never met, but you know them by reputation, you know them by what they've written, you know them by what they've said, you know them by their values, and you can adopt what they've done to be able to guide you. And one thing I need to add in that respect is also that mentorship also comes from that whole mindset where you take a great deal of interest in development, self-development, people development. So to that extent, I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of biographies and autobiographies, because what you find is that no two experiences are the same. They might be similar. So, and that's kind of stress. And if you are able to buy some of the books that have been authored by my friend Azura, you see telling the stories of celebrities, of superstars, of people who have made it and how they were able to navigate. So I recommend that to you. I'll take the second question also as number two. What can organizations do to possibly impact mentorship? And basically it's to have a structured approach to it. And I think this will come from the leadership and from in terms of management and especially the HR. And when you talk about deliberate mentorship, part of the recommendation is that number one, you have to look for people within the organization and maybe sometimes outside the organization who can speak to, who can intervene, who can intercede in identified areas where specific individuals need improvement. So that means that there will have been some kind of evaluation, and there will have been some kind of assessment to be able to do that from a corporate point of view. And the second thing that they need to make sure that the goals and the objectives, the overall goals and objectives of the organization is made clear to everyone. And that's where, again, remember what I said before, is communication is key, conversation is key. So you need to have the right kinds of conversation. What's also important in any organization that wants to pursue this is openness. Many organizations are very, very secretive. They do not operate the kind of system that makes it possible for people to either speak up or speak freely or speak openly. And once you do that, a lot of things get hidden in the lines in between. So openness is also very, very key. And as of course, the structure has to carry it. And when they talk about structure, it's about the templated approach by which, if you want to do mentorship, how should we organize it? How often should we organize it? Usually people talk about the 6 to 12 month period. And you also talk about being able to identify what you can call the success metrics of, if you want to do an evaluation to say somebody is being subjected to this kind of mentorship, how do we measure success at the end of 6 months, or at the end of 8 months, or at the end of 12 months? That's very, very important. Finally, is also to give a responsibility to somebody or unit or department, and the commitment and zeal to make it happen. But what you find is that productively, the overall productivity enhances when people are happy to be guided in what needs to be done. In closed environments where the process and procedure and operating guidelines are opaque, where it is not clear, then we always have a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes. You have a lot of disgruntlement. You have people who are not happy to work in the spaces where they are working because they are suspicious of each other. They are working in mutual disarray. They are working in silos. And so even the Bible says two can't work together except they be in agreement. So what you need to seek is that one agreement that aligns with the collective corporate agreement. So organizations have a role and responsibility to do this. And like I said, unfortunately, many organizations don't do it in that formal sense. It's only individuals who walk to people to say, I'd like you to be my mentor. And even in some of those situations, people just say that I'd like you to be my mentor because they just want to say it to fulfill our righteousness, or they need some kind of immediate gain or gratification because they want to utilize the access. If you have access to Dangote, okay, I didn't mention Dangote. Dangote is also one of my mentors. Yes, we have met a few times, and each time I meet the man, what comes across to me is simply the discipline of money management, pure and simple. Money management, the discipline of money management. For instance, it's for him that I learned that he will never go into a business that he doesn't understand. So Dangote going to petrochemicals means that he has spent time coming from the commodities of selling sugar and selling pasta to now understanding what petrochemicals means. So his success is not fickle. His success is not accidental. He has taken time to understand the field, to understand the ecosystem, to understand the weaknesses, and to see at what point he wants to make his investment and what level of investment he wants to make. All right. So when I see somebody like that, I had an encounter with him once. We did a job for a committee that the federal government made him the chairman, and he was supposed to pay us for that job. We finished this whole lunch at the State House at Asoro around about to 12 midnight on that fateful day. And the gentleman who was in charge walked me up to him and said, "These are the guys who did the job. They delivered on it." I said, "Thank you. That was a fantastic job. Don't worry, I'll try and sort out this payment." This was quarter to 12 midnight. I can't ever forget that it's actually flying back to Lagos because it's flying to Brazil that same night. But they make sure that that is done before they close up business the next day. We didn't get that money for months. So I started understanding how the mind of the average billionaire works. They never give out money that is not necessary for them to give out. They don't make it easy for them to give out money. You might see them being generous and all of that, but it comes with a great deal of rigor. So they don't give out free money. They don't pretend to spend the money that they don't have to impress anyone. All right. So organizations need to get into that mode where they understand that there has to be structures, there has to be template, there has to be commitment behind formalizing the need for mentorship based on clear evaluation, based on clear set goals, based on corporate alignment and mutual interest of both the staff and the organization itself. Then finally, the first question says, what are the strategies for feedback from our mentor? For me, the main thing is adaptability and accessibility. All right. Adaptability in the sense that when you see, hear, and know something that is at variance with what you have always thought or believed in, are you willing and able to make the change after you do your further search and introspection and study? Are you willing to make the change? That's a very, very important strategy, because if you are not, what it means that no matter how much access you have, you are not likely to be able to convert it to advantage. You are not likely to be able to identify the islands of opportunities that come from it. The second thing for me in terms of strategy is the accessibility, and it's both ways. Be accessible to the people when they want to call you, and make sure when they want to reach you, and you yourself make sure that they're accessible to you through your conduct. Now, there are mentors that are not always readily available, so don't make yourself a nuisance to them. What you need to do is to be able to study your mentor, understand how they work, how they are wired, and look for the best way by which you can be trained and guided, depending if it's like a one-on-one, and obviously something that you have to have an agreement of, maybe a timetable of when and how you can meet. If it's an adoptive one, like I said, then you can get that to do through interviews, through books, through biographies, through write-ups and so on and so forth. So the important thing is, how do you utilize the things you learn and use it to convert how your own value system is developed, how your own skills are honed, and how you're able to guide yourself to taking the right decisions at the end of the day. And in all of this is really the biggest whatever for you is the quality of how you can build relationships. And I've talked about that in the past. Your biggest strategy is the ability for social capital. I never stop of talking about that to my people. And it's not something that you can do or learn or be able to conduct 100%. Even now, I still learn. There are places where I'm still reticent. I don't want to go and meet somebody, even if I know that person and the person knows me. I'm just saying, look, should I trouble this person? But the social capital is for you to also understand how the mutual benefit can work, because people will always need something also from you. So what are you doing in exchange for that thing? What is the motive behind the exchange? Is it just because you just want to have the opportunity to grab something, or you're able to build a relationship that means that no matter when or how or where or who you talk to, there's always a predilection for them to listen to you and to be able to be empathetic to your request or to your cause. And they don't see you as somebody who is selfish and who only comes when he needs help. Or, so those are things that makes it imperative for you to develop that 360-degree helicopter ability to be able to manage relationships based on the right conversations, based on the right community, based on the right communication, based on the right connection. So it's something that you need to learn to manage on an ongoing basis. So you don't go to people only where you need them. You relate to people because your shared values and beliefs are in alignment. Even if you don't relate every day, there's still that proximity that you maintain. So you're not a stranger to them, either by the aggregate values of where and how you meet and where you operate, or the aggregate values of what that person represents and how you're able to sustain that interest too. So the thing is the dynamics that you yourself need to exhibit by making sure that you are not static, by making sure that, like I said, you yourself, you're a good mentorship example to other people. And that's why it's dynamic. That's what makes it interesting. And it's a question of continuous learning and improvement. Today, I'm talking to people who are my own peers in terms of age, but who have done things in the creative arts more than I have done. I'm talking to Itadi Ogido because that's all he's done all his life. He's one of the best cinematographers that I've worked in, that Nigeria has ever produced. I'm talking to Femi Olugbodi and I'm sitting down with them. I'm taking lectures from them. I'm taking tutorship from them. I'm sitting with Kingsley Ogboro, who was the biggest equipment rental in Nigeria. I'm sitting with even people who are younger than me, people that I saw grow up even in my job. I did a lot of Shukojo. I think she has a PhD now. She's one of the best young directors, lady that has come out of Nigeria. I saw her grow as a small girl, but she's packed so much punch that now that I'm investing in that area, I bring a lot to the table in terms of my own experience, but those experiences, man, are not necessarily core and central to what can make me succeed when it comes to the creative arts. So I have to submit myself to that learning, and in sharing my own vision and approach with them, I can tell that they are quite impressed by the fact that I'm taking what they're telling me, guiding me, teaching me, and I'm combining with what I already know and what my understanding of how I want to be positioned in that new industry is. So mentorship is a dynamic thing. And for somebody like myself, I don't know for people in the room, I don't believe in retirement, in physical retirement. The moment you think you are retired, or even psychological retirement, you must always be engaged because you're not using your brain, it atrophies. Atrophies means that it stops growing, it stops functioning, it starts receding. So yes, you can slow down as you advance in age, but you see, the interesting thing about life is that every tranche, every step is an experience in itself that is worth celebrating. Okay, so I take it that way. I take every challenge as a celebration of the potential to learn something new. And that's the same way that God should approach, okay, so I've done this for 30 years or 35 years. What more can I do? Even if it's just for the kick of it, or I need it to sustain myself. You don't rush into it, because if you rush into it, you rush out of it. If you rush into it because of money, I think people are making money. As soon as you get in there, you understand that, there's a planting season and there's harvest season. And if you don't understand the ecosystem, you're just going to fail. So to that question, the strategy is really about learning to build strong relationships based on connections, on community, on communication, and the right kind of conversations. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. I know we can go on and on and on, and we'll keep learning from your wealth of experience. We're so grateful. It's really been a very, very rare privilege being able to trap you down for almost 2 hours to really glean from your wealth of experience. Somebody said, mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. So what we've done today is to pick the brain of Dr. Tunji Olugbodi, and then on the side of the mentee is to have an ear to listen, and of course a push in the right direction. So I hope and trust that the impactation, like we say in church, that we've received today is going to push us in the right direction. Mentorship is not about just having a place to just go and gist. It's a matter of receiving that energy, that fuel, that thing that's going to propel you from one level to the other. So I'm so positive that there's going to be so much moving and movement in the right directions in the heart and the lives of every one of us that have been a part of this. I don't know what to call it. It's been a time of chatting with a father in order to commemorate a Father's Day. So Dr. Tunji Olugbodi, I'm so grateful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything. We don't take it for granted. And of course, let me thank Chief Azo Arize. He was here almost like 30 minutes before 11. a.m. when the program really started. I really appreciate your being here long before we started, and even you are still here today. We are so grateful. That means that there's something to learn from you also, and very soon, I can assure you we're going to really find a way of bringing you close to us in BCI to see how to really glean from you. So I'm so grateful. Several people had come in and they are gone. Architect Deji Adepeju, thank you so much for staying up till now with us. We don't take it for granted. There are some that I can't see your names. Please, I appreciate every one of us. And to the men in the house that have decided to celebrate we fathers by listening to us today, we appreciate you. BCI is a place that we value so much of mentoring of people. I'm the chief mentor officer here, or mentorship officer. My office is always open. You just need to tell me that I have something to ask you, or I have something to tell you, and I'm all ears. And then we have a deputy managing director that is actually an encyclopedia. He reads so much, and he has so much wealth of wisdom and resources in him. And some of us, I know you always get into his hands and you get stuck because it was going to give you full dose. And I mean, every management team member, one way or the other, take time to not only show staff how to do it, they're the mentor. I mean, it's a culture in BCI. And listening to what we have listened to today, I mean, the best we can only do is to properly make it a structure and institutionalized mentorship in BCI. So thank you, everyone. Sorry that I usurped the moderator's position. All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Next time, we're going to have another wonderful program, and we do it together. Thank you all. Bye-bye.